Welcome back. All right, so always check your hat. Yeah, no, the hat's clean. All right, so Sergei Samsonov. I wanted to do a career video today on Sergei Samsonov, a player who was really quite talented, frustrated at times with, and a lot of this may have been injury related, but not producing the way that I think teams may have hoped that he might. So. For Samsonov, he's drafted 8th overall in 1997. Throughout his whole career, he's known as Sergei Samsonov. Of course, now we have Ilya Samsonov. At least it was Samsonov with the Caps. Now it's Samsonov again because he's in Toronto. But at any rate, I'm going to be saying Samsonov in this video. His first year in Boston, 97-98, it was a big year. Boston going through a tough time. So they get Joe Thornton, number 1 overall. And then the number 8 pick comes to them via trade from the Carolina Hurricanes. And I'm wearing Canes. I debated about which jersey to wear. I felt like, he had a really good run with Carolina. The way that things ended in Boston wasn't necessarily the way that I think he would have won, and so I went with Carolina. But that first year in Boston was a good one. 81 games played, 22 goals, 25 assists, 47 points. And you could see the talent, the speed, and just his overall offensive ability was really good. He had won Rookie of the Year the previous year in the International Hockey League, so they kind of knew what they were getting in the playoffs. In 6 games, 2 goals, 5 assists, 7 points, and he won the Calder Trophy. So for Samsonov, it's a really good start to his career. And 98-99 plays 79 games, 25 goals, 26 assists, 51 points. In the playoffs, in 11 games, he adds 3 goals with an assist for 4 points. So in his second year, he does well. You want to see that progression, and it's there. The third year, it's a bit of a fallback, and this is where some frustration would kick in on some level. 77 games, 19 goals, 26 assists, 45 points. Now, it's a tumultuous time for the Bruins. They're still finding themselves, their identity and all that. Their goaltending was an adventure at this stage in time. They were still a ways away from, Tim Thomas coming in. And even when Thomas came in, and I've talked about this in previous historical related videos, the Bruins just seemed to not want Thomas to be their goaltender, even when his numbers were very good. But in this era, it's kind of tough. So in 2000-2001, he has quite the season. 82 games played by Samsonov that year, 29 goals, 46 assists for 75 points. And he plays in the All-Star game that year. So it's his one All-Star game appearance. He's up near point per game. And again, things are really quite exciting in Boston at this point. 2001-2002, 74 games played, 29 goals, 41 assists, 70 points. Remarkably consistent. Bruins are back in the playoffs. Samsonov plays 6 games, 2 goals, 2 assists, 4 points. So overall, the numbers are good, right? He's doing well, back-to-back 70-plus point seasons. And then 2002-2003, his season is cut short by a wrist injury. So he would only play 8 games that year, 5 goals, 6 assists, 11 points. Showing that he was producing quite well. The wrist injury means you never find out how many points he was going to get that season. 5 games in the playoffs and just the 2 assists. So for Samsonov, it feels like it's a turning point. And the following year, 2003-2004, he had injuries to his knee, his ribs. Only plays 58 games that year, and you can see a fall off here. 17 goals, 23 assists, 40 points. In the playoffs, in 7 games, 2 goals, 5 assists, 7 points. I believe Boston lost in 7 games to Montreal that year. So the lockout wipes out the 04-05 season. So we come back into this in 05-06. In what would be his final season with Boston, he plays 58 games, 18 goals, 19 assists, 37 points. He's not the same player he was before the injuries. That's definitely slowed him down. So March the 9th, he is traded to Edmonton for a 2006 second-round pick, which Boston would use to draft Milan Lucic, Marty Reisner, and Jan Stastny. So it's a trade that initially people said, wow, Boston got fleeced. Because Samsonov goes to Edmonton and plays really well. In 19 games, regular season, 5 goals, 11 assists, 16 points. And in the playoffs, well, Edmonton goes all the way to the final. 24 games, 4 goals, 11 assists, 15 points. So Samsonov played well in Edmonton. I was really surprised he didn't sign there. He goes to the free agent market and ends up signing in Montreal. July the 12th, he signed as a free agent. He only spends 1 year in Montreal. That's 06-07. 63 games played that year, 9 goals, 17 assists, 26 points. So again, he's really been slowed by injury. He's getting signed to contracts, and I remember the contracts being a bone of contention because he got signed for good money. He's a talented player, and I think general managers were kind of betting on him getting back to his previous form. Well, June the 16th, after that season's done, he's traded to Chicago for Cullimore and Salmelainen. So, not the kind of return you would have thought for a guy like Samsonov that a decade earlier had been Calder Trophy winner, right? A top 10 draft pick and a Calder Trophy winner. Well, things get worse in Chicago. He plays 23 games for the Hawks in 07-08, 4 assists, no goals. So they waive him. Now, there was also re-entry waivers. So he cleared the waivers being sent down, but when he was brought back up by Chicago, Carolina swooped in and claimed him. Re-entry waivers meant you didn't end up paying the guy quite so much. The team that lost the guy ends up paying a little bit. It's the reason why you would see players get trapped in the AHL that otherwise would get sent up, and eventually the NHL ditched re-entry waivers for reasons such as this. But after Carolina picked him up, he was a really good waiver wire pickup. One video I've been wanting to do over the last few days here is looking at waiver wire pickups and ones that do really well. In Samsonov's case, 38, I keep wanting to say Samsonov, but we didn't call him that. 38 games played with Carolina after they pick him up on waivers, 14 goals, 18 assists, 32 points. It rejuvenates his career. And so Jim Rutherford says, you know what? I'm going to give him an extension. And so gives him a big extension, but he had a hard time following up what was a really good year. 2008-2009, 81 games, 16 goals, 32 assists for 48 points. In the playoffs, 17 games, because this is Carolina history. You miss the playoffs forever. Then you go to the conference final or the Stanley Cup final, and then you go back to missing the playoffs. Recent Carolina Hurricanes team, pretty rude, just staying in the playoffs every year. But 5 goals, 3 assists, 8 points for Carolina during that run. And so, I mean, is this production where he wanted to be? Probably not. Did he play up to his contract? Again, probably not. But again, do you put that on the player? Do you put that on the GM that signs the contract? So, 2009-2010, 72 games, 14 goals, 15 assists, 29 points. The scoring has dropped way off. 2010-2011, plays 58 games for Carolina, 10 goals, 16 assists for 26 points. And then on February the 28th, he was traded to the Florida Panthers for Brian Allen. An ongoing thing that I've noticed, and almost meme-worthy, really, is how many NHL players finish their career with the Panthers. It feels like it's a lot. So 20 games played with Florida at the end of that season, 3 goals, 11 assists, 14 points. That would be his final season. So he at least got 40 points in 78 games. His career comes to an end with 888 games played, 235 goals, 336 assists for 571 points. In the playoffs, in 76 games, 18 goals, 29 assists, 47 points. He is currently a development coach for the Carolina Hurricanes. He also previously worked as a scout, hired by Ron Francis in 2014. So he's carved out a good career for himself with the Carolina Hurricanes post-retirement, which is why I chose to wear Carolina rather than Boston. He really hasn't had any interaction with the Bruins organization I've seen since they traded him in 2006. He also did get some bling for himself. 1996-1997 World Junior Championship, he gets bronze. 2002, he had an Olympic bronze as well. So he did play in the Olympics. He did play well enough and gets himself a bronze for the Russian team, and World Juniors bronze in 96 and 97. So not bad, pretty good, and overall a career that it did end relatively early. I can go ahead and add this to the playlist of careers that probably should have been longer, if not for A, the wrist injury here that takes him out for 74 games, and B, the knee and rib injuries. And then once your knee is having issues and it becomes an ongoing thing, that will cause problems for a National Hockey League player. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, as always, about Sergei Samsonov, how you felt about him during his career, his time in Carolina, his time in Boston, all that fun stuff. Let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through, you just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.